Increasingly in research, there's a growing recognition that we should promote open science and open research practices as much as we can. So this includes right from the start of planning a project, making sure your proposal is clearly registered somewhere, that data is collected in a transparent manner, and up until the publication of the eventual findings, those being openly accessible as well. In our own research practices, we increasingly incorporate these principles and adhere to them, but in our education, we now also more frequently try and promote these principles and make students aware of them so that they can judge previously published literature based on adhering to these principles, but also in their own research projects, try and incorporate them as much as they can. For example, when students plan a project, we, where possible, try to make sure they register their plan in advance, especially if there's an eventual intention to publish their findings later on.
So as part of the project, we are interested in looking at the participants' breathing rate. We look at that side on, which is also good to look at their postural changes as they do the singing activities. And the singing activities involved are singing Happy Birthday at different tempos, slow, medium and fast tempos. And by recording those things, we can see how breathing and balance changes. The participants in this study will be recording their perceived anxiety in relation to their breathing and their balance, so that we can coordinate those findings with the physical findings we're seeing on the force plate and that we're observing, for example, their respiratory rate.
What you can see on the screen here is the postural sway of the person balancing. So you can see the center of pressure on the screen moving back and forth and making little curves along the way. And what you can deduce from that sway is not only how well people can control their balance, because just the more that center of pressure moves around, the worse balance usually is thought to be. But you can also deduce how balance is controlled from a neural perspective. So if the brain is really consciously involved in the balance control, you would see differences in the curvature of this postural sway. And that's what we're trying to assess here, to see if singing affects this neural control of posture. Why is this important? Well, we know that when balance is more consciously controlled, this may come at the cost of the efficiency, the safety with which you control your balance. And if singing experience can lead to a more effectively, more efficiently controlled balance, that might indicate that singing could be a potential intervention to help people control balance in a better and more effective way. What we eventually aim to do with this project is write up the analysis and publish these as a preprint that is openly accessible to other researchers, and for them to comment on our work, give feedback on it, so that we can keep improving that document before eventually submitting it to a peer-reviewed international scientific journal. That journal, by the way, we're aiming for that to be an openly accessible journal, so that everyone who is interested may be able to reach our paper and learn about our findings. We have then done this in an earlier project with another MSc student, where we published our work as a preprint, and it's currently being reviewed for an open access publication in a renowned journal in respiratory medicine. This was just an example for one specific project, but in future work, we're aiming to continue working with students along these lines, integrating these principles. And one of the things we're looking into is doing a study with older adults where we make people anxious by putting them at height in virtual reality and recording their postural responses, as well as their perceived anxiety and changes in neural processing, so changes in brain activity. So in sum, keep in mind that there are three key principles you have to adhere to when working in research. Register your plans, make your data available, and publish your findings in a place where everyone can access it, freely available journal. In doing this and in integrating these principles in our education as well as research, we aim for our students to be better prepared to work in an evidence-based manner in their later professional clinical career.